down, yelling out money, anything, ayy. Ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag, ayy. Got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast, ayy. Ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss, ayy.
Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by Revenova, the official TMS provider for the Freight Coach. You guys, I've been a broker for a long time, and the tools that are at your disposal with Revenova help you eliminate bouncing between systems, which improves your accuracy when you are managing multiple tasks throughout your workday. Plus, it's built into the Salesforce cloud, so your CRM is fully integrated with your TMS, eliminating yet another silo. In today's day and age, you are definitely concerned about the safety of your data. With Revenova, it's fully protected. They have cutting-edge security that keeps your information safe so you can focus on what matters most, and that's growing your business. Speaking of growing your business, with Rate and Lane IQ, you get real-time pricing and route recommendations, helping you optimize costs and improve operational efficiencies, which ultimately helps you make smarter decisions. If you are like me and have recurring shipments from non-EDI customers, they have intuitive cloning features that let you easily replicate previous shipments, saving both shipper and carrier rates with just a few taps. If you are ready to learn more, visit www.revenova.com to request a demo. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agent success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Just a brief notice here. Tomorrow, the Freight Coach newsletter drops. It's once a week. It's just on Wednesdays. But I need you to go to my website, thefreightcoach.com, to sign up for it, because I only want you to receive it if you actually want it. I personally get annoyed when people just bombard my inbox with newsletters, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is for. But rest assured, we only talk about freight because it's kind of all I really know at the end of the day. So we talk about freight. We put some rates in there for you guys, some fuel prices and everything. But again, it's just once a week, but I need you to go to my website to sign it up. And, again, rest assured, my team handles that. I don't even know who signed up for it. So I don't even know what to do with your information if I had access to it, and I don't. But I'm rushing through this because today's guest is this is one of the rare instances where I can tell you pre-interview, I don't know if we're going to have enough time to get our entire conversation in, because she's electric, and we are going to talk about technology. We're going to talk about rolling it out, change management, all that fun stuff. And I have Sarah Miller on the show this morning. Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thanks for having me on. Nice to be here. Happy Taco Tuesday. I saw that in the chat. So
yeah, exactly. Corey Buchan, he's a longtime listener out there. And it's, so before we get into all of this stuff, Sarah, how did you get your start in freight? What brought you into transportation?
Like most, it was an accident. I was not looking for a job, and I bumped into some people And what do you want to do? Like, I was at the time an executive assistant, and I'm like, oh, I want to manage the intersection of people and technology. I think that for companies to really innovate these days, they need to invest in their core technology. And they're like, that's crazy. We need that. We just implemented this new TMS system, Revenova, and we'd love to have someone kind of run that. And that's how I got into freight. I started in freight tech, still in freight tech. And that's the abridged version of how I got into freight. I was like, sold.
So I think what you have done is what a lot of organizations, I think, struggle with, or like don't even get to that point. And that's dealing with like choosing a new TMS. And I think, like in particular, when it comes to Revenova, obviously I'm a user of Revenova. I've used them for the last 3 years inside of my company. And I look at like the capabilities of what it is compared to like some of the older TMS systems that I have used in the past. And I think what gets a lot of people is comfort. I think comfort scares more people from making the change in technology. So like, how did you kind of manage that? And especially coming in with like no freight experience and then telling a bunch of individuals who are probably set in their ways, hey guys, this is why we're doing it this way.
So the couple things. One, I'm very, very fortunate that our interest and investment in technology is top down. Dan Mancham, CEO at Ally, is very invested in technology. Spends every day, talking to us about it. Yeah. I spend hours and hours and hours with him. So we had the top down investment and belief in it, which is really important when you're managing organizational change. Yeah. The other thing is I did track freight. Part of our training, including the people who I brought onto my team, even if they're a developer, they're going to track freight for at least 2 weeks. It's not the same as years and years and years as a broker, but you get to understand what it is to talk to a carrier, what it is to put a check call in, and some of the pain points people experience in the clicks. So that helped, and just relied heavily on our leaders. Change has to come from everyone, from CEOs to middle managers, and had constant conversations with what are your pain points, what hurts you. And that would just be how all of our tech initiatives started, was someone was annoyed with something.
Yeah. Is this something that, because like at times the C-suite is all on board with automation, time saving, eliminating redundancies. I know, like, as somebody who's building his company, that's like probably the top of my mind most days. How is this technology improving my time? Because I know from my seat, like most startups out there, Sarah, you only have so much capital. You only have so much runway. You need to make every at-bat count every single day. Every minute of your day has to count towards getting that war chest of capital built up till you can take that next step. So how do you balance that out, right? Where it's like the C-suite's bought in or leadership's bought in, but the frontline workers are kind of like, why are we doing this?
There is a lot of pressure in freight to make every implementation frictionless. It has to be so much better and easier to utilize the new process than the old that people don't want to consider the old process. We also use a lot of pilot groups. It is almost never that a technology would go right from implementation to the entire company. We have a lot of people who are the ideal persona for a pilot group is not just someone who is relatively tech informed. It's people who their peer groups listen to. So if I have a carrier sales team, I'm going to the person not just who's bought on technology, but who talks to all the other carrier sales reps, and they look to you for advice. That's incredibly helpful. Sorry, I think I lost the question.
No. It's with the like the buy-in that comes along with it, because it's always a I think like a structural issue that comes along, or it's getting that cultural buy-in. Like what you were describing there is like, hey, you kind of got to get those change management advocates on the floor who are like, no, I want something like this. That maybe is that they came to you guys and said, hey, we noticed this redundancy. Can you find technology to help it? And then you kind of just let it flow through that individual once you guys have gone through the demos and everything.
Yes. And we bring them into the initial conversations. When we're vetting vendors, we're showing the people on the floor. It isn't some mystical process that's happening behind, C-suite decision-making. Obviously, they're informed and they help and guide, but we're pulling in the people who are going to use the technology every day. We also have a very high bar. Our vendors will attest to that. We have a very high bar for what technology success means at Ally. We're restless. And if we don't feel like we can find it elsewhere, we will build it in-house.
Yeah. So let's talk about that, right? Like, because I think standards are a good thing. I know shocking that might surprise, an individual like, oh my gosh, but like, I look at it is like there has to be standards and expectations if you're going to invest capital into a company, right? And, and we are kind of at that time now where a lot of organizations who are tech focused, they've started to kick around that conversation of do we just build our own product? So it's like, how are you kind of balancing that out? And how do you guys come to that decision? Because I think another thing that comes along with technology, Sarah, is this scares a lot of people because it is a big change out there. So how did you guys come up? Is there like a set standards you can give out of like, hey, this is what we hold our vendors to. And if you were in the market to look for something, this is what I would be asking them.
It's so variable based on the product. If I'm using something that is handling a very core process like booking, I want to know their uptime. How often is this going down? Because any minute, especially in a tight market, you're keeping me from booking a load with a favorable carrier. It's costing me, could be hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars. So what is their uptime? What is their redundancy? That's a super technical answer. Some more subjective things you look at is how good is their customer success team? And it's really hard to gauge that during interview processes and vetting. But when things go down, do they tell you first or are you coming to them? We have a couple vendors who knock it out of the park. They're telling us things are down before we even know. They're setting up a redundancy before we even know. And that makes a huge difference of having technology you can trust and that the people on your floor trust. Where we have a small blip, the world's not ending. They're like, oh, so-and-so's got it. That technology will be up in 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm. I think that's what is another angle that drives a lot of resistance toward technology, right? Because it's like, I mean, and this is something that I went through. Because as we're in, like we a big thing for us is we actually implemented a CRM last year. We had been on spreadsheets. I was such a staunch advocate for like, you don't need a CRM, you don't need a CRM, until I actually found the right one for our organization. And again, shout out to Sales Dash because I use them. And now I'm like all bought in on that because of like you're talking about the customer success program that comes along with it. I know when I reach out to them about a question, even if their product's not down, Sarah, if it's, hey, can your system do this? Boom, screenshot. Here's a 3-step, answer to your program. This is how you like that. To me is so imperative. And to me, like it gets me like, I'm going to be a customer for life with that because it's like, I know that they're openly invested in the success of my company at that point, right? And they don't just look at me as a line item on their balance sheet. And I think like as you go out there and scale your business, I think a lot of you're going to be unpleasantly surprised about how you might be treated out there as a paying customer. And that's why it's like as you find the right vendors, when you find them, like that's why people are so resistant to change. And that's why it's such a tough, like technology sales, I think in a lot of industries, specifically freight, that's got to be one of the hardest jobs that are out there because I know when I find the right vendors who take care of me, who are attentive to my needs, and it doesn't matter if I'm their smallest customer or not, I'm never leaving them because I know the inverse of that. I know what's out there.
Yeah. I mean, freight runs on efficiency and speed. If a vendor is not contributing to one of those, you should be asking yourself while you're working with them. So if they can't get back to me within the same day with questions about performance or adding features on, that's impacting my speed. If their thing keeps going down, if it's not, increasing the ability to make a check call, take an inbound call, book a load, then they're not helping my efficiency. With freight, it's not the industry you go into to have a bunch of cash cows. You have to be efficient. You have to be fast.
How do you, so speaking of that, you have to be efficient, you have to be fast. I'm hearing shiny object syndrome. And I think that there's a lot of great technology that's out there for freight, but there's also a lot of shiny object syndrome that is going on out there. And, this is why I try and get as many tech companies on my show as possible because I want people to see from different angles. I kind of want that no pressure, not a demo, but like just an open and honest conversation. And, undoubtedly, if you go to any conference in any industry right now, AI is everywhere. AI. Yeah. But there's a vast difference between what AI is capable of in the future and what it currently performs at. And how do you, as somebody who goes through a ton of demos, I can only imagine what your inboxes look like about all of this. How do you eliminate the shiny object syndromes? And what would you advise companies who are currently assessing the shiny objects out there on, hey, this is how I eliminate what their actual capabilities are as opposed to their marketed capabilities?
So we normally, freight companies know what their hard processes are. For example, like we have gone through and we build loads from email. We get a DO via email, we build it in our system, right?
Yeah.
The hardest version of that's probably a drayage tender because they are so involved. You have multiple containers, multiple loads, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
So we'll take what our hardest process is and then say, we're only signing if we do a pilot and we prove this is possible, right? Like we are huge emphasis on pilots at Ally. We want to see the product work because unfortunately, whether your product is amazing or not, you're making up for that. We kind of talked about industry sentiment of being burned.
Yeah.
I was sold one thing, I get 6 months in, I've been paying, it's not even fully implemented yet, it starts to work, and then we realize all the holes.
Yeah.
We're finding those out in the first 2 to 3 months. And if we can't even get someone to agree to one, it's very rare we'll sign unless we just know there's enough backing on this company. They've been with enough other, similar customers that we're not worried about it.
So what do you mean by a pilot? Like they're essentially giving you 90-day, we'll call it a trial, where you guys are going in there and just making sure that the functionality is even there. And then that's a red flag if they don't even allow that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And now there's a bunch of levers in the commercials of that where it's like maybe it's 90 days and you're not paying until it's integrated and working, or it's 90 days with a full opt-out allowed at 90 days, or a refund, or you do a scale-up program until it's proven. But some version of that where they're willing to hedge bets for their product.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not willing to bet on their product and that it works and proves value in the first 3 months, I'm not very interested.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's a very great strategy to utilize out there. And, so it's like, how are you guys also assessing? And again, I don't ever advocate for failure or anything like that in business, but there's a lot of companies who have a lot of short-term funding behind them, whether it's through venture, private equity, any stuff like that. And again, we've seen a lot of companies in freight, specifically freight tech, that have came on the scene at all the conferences, the biggest booths that are out there that are now gone. Yeah. How do you guys assess, are you going to be in business in 2 years?
So we actually, VC is our biggest red flag. We obviously work with a ton of great VC customers, but we look at them with much more scrutiny because you said, when you're being backed by VC, it's not just the customer now you're trying to please, it's the investor.
Yeah.
And in freight, if you're not 100% focused on serving the brokerage you're helping, they will leave you quick because now more than ever, there is so much optionality in freight tech. We look at a couple of things. One is we keep a pulse on, we are brokers. We know what brokers need. So we ask them, tell us what your roadmap is. What do you care about? What are you trying to solve as a company? And when you're a broker, you can hear pretty quick, is this aligned with what brokers actually want to see? That's the first thing. Second, who's investing in them? There are a couple companies out there where if they're backing them, you're pretty confident they're going to do okay because those companies invest millions of dollars into investing in the right companies. So there's a couple small ones. Who's investing in them? Do you feel their roadmaps actually align with what you and other brokers need to see? And 3 is, again, to that pilot. How efficiently and effectively are they able to provide value to you? Because that's what keeps a company in business, is providing value.
What is some, we'll call them roadmap red flags that you guys have identified out there? Because again, I think that, a lot of individuals, I think that there's a intense scrutiny with freight tech that is out there because there are a lot. I have heard way more been burned stories than massive successful rollout. Everything's been going great. Obviously, there's a lot of, you see the consistent companies at all the shows that have been there year after year after year. I think those are your safe bets that are out there. But there's, again, to kind of tie into the shiny new objects. And again, I'm not crapping on any company out there, but I want to help keep people in business. I don't want people to get tied into a long-term contract. It's a product that doesn't work, and it actually potentially puts the broker or the trucking company out of business because they're oversold on the capabilities. So what are some of those roadmap red flags you guys have identified?
Lack of focus. If you see what they're marketing today, this is what the product does, this is what they're selling you on. You look at their roadmap for the next year, 2 years, and it is vastly different from what they're doing today. For me, that's a red flag. You have to be in business successfully for a couple of years before you even consider a best in suite approach. And if you're not in tech, that means best in class is we are going to book your loads. We are going to be the best at booking your loads. Best in suite is I'm going to book your loads, make your check calls, do your billings, right? Be the best all-in solution versus the best at doing one specific thing, especially when you're new to market. If your roadmap is all over the place, you're just throwing darts at a hidden dartboard. You don't know what you're doing. I don't believe you're going to stay around.
Yeah. Do you think that there's too many one-off solutions? And what I mean by that is there's a lot of technology that's coming in that only really addresses one area of a job. And you're kind of like, why automate that one specific task when I have these 13 other ones that would probably be more suited for that? And then, furthermore, to kind of put a part B to that question, when people only have so much capital to invest, how do you choose like what is the best thing to invest in here?
That is very business specific. So if your company is really bloated in a specific department, and there is also keeping in mind that freight is more exception than standard. So a lot of industries can be pretty churn and burn. You're doing the same thing every day in and out. Freight is not that. Every load, every relationship is different. So for me, I see way more value in a tool that invests all of their focus and all of their time into handling the best orchestration for exceptions. Right? That is why AI, I think, has really accelerated the success and proliferation of freight tech. Because for a long time, freight tech really couldn't touch aspects of efficiency because it couldn't handle exceptions. Someone who's investing all their time in handling the exceptions of a mission critical process like load booking, like increasing your days to invoice, stuff like that, to me, it's worth the focus and worth the money. I rather get really, really good at that and then get to the next thing. As well as you can sometimes be honest with the earlier companies. I only want this one thing. I want you to do it really, really well. And you're not always paying for the whole shebang. For us and our strategy, that's worked really well.
I look at it is because like, again, we're a small company, we're building, we're scaling, we're looking at how do we utilize, like my honest opinion on automation inside of my company is like 95% of my day should and can be automated as a broker. But those critical core tasks of talking to a customer or speaking to a driver or a dispatcher, I will never automate them inside of my company. I do not ever want to put a bot behind it. I personally think that will become a competitive advantage in the future. I'm kind of hedging my bet on that because I think like my end like decision with that is what stops a manufacturer from just putting an AI bot as a receptionist and then it's just bot talking to bot, and you think there's going to be a real progress made with that? I personally don't. But I look at it I think as you're building out your tech stack, would you advise like, hey, find that core issue inside of your company? Like if you're like, hey, I want to automate, I just don't know where to start automating. Have you guys kind of found a core thing like, hey, this is a great first step if you're going from no automation to implementing it?
Back office is way easier, right? Like you said, you're not really risking any relationships. It's something that you always have to staff people to do. People don't want to do a lot of the back office work. They don't enjoy it. So looking at what are those really high volume, highly iterative, simple tasks. So cross-checking documents with something like Triumph Pay Audit or any of the host of tools you can have to cross-check documents. Start there. If you're still doing that manually, no one needs to be doing that. Systems are good at it.
Okay, so freight audit bill pay would be step number one.
It's one of them, but again, it depends on volume. When you're a company like Ally has 100 employees, we're moving quite a bit of freight now. That impact of doing that is much higher than if we're only doing 10 loads a day. In that case, it's depends on what you think your strategic advantage is. You said yours is talking to carriers. So what is the task that takes up the most time away from talking to carriers? For a lot of people, that's check calls. Right. But that's still talking to carriers. So what part of check calls would you be open to offloading? Or to what extent could you really trust a telematics system to reduce the amount of check calls you're doing? Or do you find a tool that makes it simpler and more favorable for a trucker to interface with you? But again, scale impacts that equation.
Do you think, and one of the questions came in about, experience with, speaking of telematics and, in-cab rollouts and stuff like that, do you think that a broker going out there and maybe looking at, because again, like tracking's been around for a long time, but, again, if we're like, hey, how do we make meaningful conversations? And again, most organizations, they're lean, they can only make so many dials in a day. Is that maybe an ELD integration into your TMS that just auto feeds location updates? Have you seen anything like that that's out there?
Yeah, so we do that. We are a Trucker Tools org. We also, when I first got to Ally, we were on MacroPoint. We moved to Trucker Tools pre the DAT acquisition, and it does a good job. The hard part is telematics compliance. Again, we're not on an asset brokerage, so I can't speak to in-cab hardware rollouts. But from a brokerage perspective, they do pretty good. But with the rise in freight fraud, we do like to check in and make sure they're still doing well. The driver knows who we are. Driver knows who the dispatcher is, stuff like that. The trick isn't just getting telematics integrated, it's telematics orchestration. For example, Trucker Tools, your tracking can flip between ELD to phone. Right? ELD gets messed up, it'll ping their phone, whatever. Phone gets turned off. How are you following up with the carrier? Hey, your phone turned off, you need to get that turned back on, because not only do I care to know where you are as a broker, so does my customer, and I'm getting scorecarded on 4 kites. Orchestrating that, I think, is where you can get some leverage. We actually handle the orchestration in-house, but we do leverage telematics from Trucker Tools to power that orchestration.
What was it that, I mean, you might not know this answer to this, but this could be, for your CEO who's very, very tech focused. What was that decision of like, hey, we got to get ahead of this. We got to build up a top-notch tech stack to compete with, the largest companies that are out there. What was that decision?
I think just being honest with where the industry is going. And as a brokerage, your goal is always to be lean, whether you like it or not, right? You're not trying to create this insane amount of overhead. And identifying that tech had finally made that journey over the peak to being good and great at certain things, and just saying, we need to be the fastest and the best at getting there. Wherever it's going, we need to get there first. Has kind of driven a lot of that. And again, previously it wasn't the case. There wasn't the right resources, there weren't the right tools, there weren't the right models to support it. But we're hedging our bets that they're there now and they're doing well for us.
I personally think you are going to start seeing a lot. I look at, again, I talk about C.H. Robinson a lot on this show because they are like eons ahead of a lot of companies that are out there in regards to like technology and the rollout and everything and what they're doing. And I also believe that, success leaves clues, and what they have done from like an AI perspective because they seemingly attacked the redundancies and the processes and everything. Again, I'm not privy to any inside information at C.H. Robinson. I'm just going off of the news clippings and what I read out there. But I look at it as a very common misconception that, because you see all the VC money, it's like, oh, just get investors and you can just stay in business. As somebody who's bootstrapping their organizations up, I look at technology as my competitive advantage to pack as large of a punch as C.H. Robinson can out there from an efficiencies, a visibility standpoint, all of that stuff. And I think that is where the power axis will start to tilt is you are going to see very lean companies out there who are going to now not only beat you on your service, they're going to crush you on price because they are very lean. Their overhead is down.
Yes. There is a barrier. I will say, I agree to an extent, but that's when we see the cusp of things becoming like technology becoming more of a commodity and more accessible, because we still see a huge buying advantage when you're at scale. It can be completely cost preventative for some smaller companies to get access to high level technology because there's paywalls. Some technology isn't priced per load, and honestly, transactional pricing doesn't make a lot of sense in freight. Freight is very high touch with low reward. The percentage is low, and so doing something based on touch just doesn't tend to make sense from a pricing strategy. And there's a lot of ideas I have around that I won't disclose today.
No, I know what you mean. It is. I think like this is, I look at this as the modern day gold rush, Sarah, in the sense of there are going to be technologies. They might not be available today, but this is laying the groundwork from an efficiency standpoint that is going to uncover, like you just look at a trucking company, for example, high overhead that is out there. This is going to find them that 1% to 3% cost reductions that's going to increase their profitability exponentially, that could help them invest into their fleet, do all of that stuff. And then as a broker, this is that opportunity where you could possibly be doing $100 million a year in freight with 10 people.
Yeah.
Like legit, like I'm not saying it's there today, but the groundwork is being laid today to make that a possibility here in the near future.
I do think that will be much easier to do for new brokerages than old, though.
I
It is
agree.
really, really hard to shepherd from legacy systems to new systems. And yes, there's the cultural aspect to it, and that can be managed. But even just the technical debt, unless you want to pull it all out and put it back in, which if you try to do that at org at scale, takes a lot of resources that you might not have in this market.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out for everyone. And I don't think one path is right. I think we'll see a lot of happen in parallel.
I think what you just said, Sarah, is why I have said I think the days of the mega brokerage are coming to an end, because I think you're right. It's very tough to, adjust trajectory of a very large and established organization who's been doing business for 30 plus years that are out there. But that up and coming organization, those lean organizations, they are going to wreak havoc in the market in a good way, because they are going to crack that code, i.e. I'm hedging my bets on Freight Coach Logistics to be the one that makes that happen. But that is where I think like there is going to be real disruption in the market, where there will be somebody who is going to be able to run very lean and provide a cheaper service, a cheaper price to the customer, and a 10x better service than they're ever experienced out there based on technology and where things are going. Again, I'm not saying they're there today. I'm just saying in the near future, that is going to be a very real possibility out there. And she froze.
More. You still got me?
Yeah, I got you. Sarah, it's inevitable. Anytime I talk about tech on the show, the screen freezes. So it's just par for the course.
As I just as much as this technology is becoming accessible to brokers, it's becoming accessible to shippers, like you touched on. I personally think that is just going to further emphasize the value of brokers who moves this type of freight best, because the easy stuff, the general stuff, and now this is a really, two sides of the fence belief of, is AI going to handle special?
Yeah. Oh. All right. That is, we're going to have to, I think Sarah's having a little bit of technical difficulties on her end there, you guys, but that is going to be it for today. Like I said, I knew this conversation was going to fly by with Sarah. We're going to, she's electric. There's a ton of value that is inside of this episode, you guys, for it. As always, if you got value and you're not subscribed to the show, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane